Good evening, welcome to Scotland at 7 with me, Gordon Ross. It's the 30th of March today. First of all, today's coronavirus statistics update. As of 2 o'clock today, a total of 1,814,740 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and the UK Government's regional testing centres since the beginning of the pandemic. Of these, 1,596,850 have been confirmed negative. 217,890 have tested positive. There are 411 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. There are 31 historic cases from the 29th of January till the 22nd of March 2021, which are included in today's update. Not everyone with the virus, of course, will display the symptoms, and so not all of those with the symptoms will be tested. There were 12 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive today. The number of patients in Scotland who've now died from complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 7,596. This number only includes those who've died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 250 were in hospital last night, with 23 in intensive care. As of 8 o'clock this morning, 2,436,398 people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination, and 338,443 had received their second dose. The latest UK daily figures show that 126,615 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness. This is an increase of 23 since yesterday. Of course, this number only refers to deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. And now to the ONS update. The percentage of people testing positive for COVID-19 is likely to have levelled off in England and appeared to level in Wales and Northern Ireland, although there is high uncertainty. In Scotland, the positivity rate has increased over the past 2 weeks, the week ending the 20th of March 2021. The hospital admissions rate in England continued to decrease in the latest week, ending the 21st of March 2021. The number of registered deaths involving COVID-19 in England and Wales decreased the week ending the 19th of March this year. The number of all deaths registered in England and Wales in the week ending the 19th of March was 10,311. Of these deaths, 9.3%, that's 963, mentioned COVID-19 in the death certificate, a decrease from the previous week. The total number of deaths registered was 8% lower than the 5-year average. In February, COVID-19 was the leading cause of death in both England and Wales. And now to tonight's main headlines. Okay. Just before I continue to read tonight's news, I've just been asked to remind you that there is something special happening this evening on TV, which you might want to watch, and so our programme will be a little shorter than usual this evening to accommodate that. Anyway, now to tonight's main headlines. There is to be a cautious easing of lockdown. People across Scotland can make non-essential journeys in their local authority area from Friday the 2nd of April, when a requirement to stay local will replace the stay-at-home rule. Hairdressers, garden centres, car showrooms and forecourts, homeware stores and non-essential click and collect services will be able to open on Monday the 5th of April, subject to enhanced safety measures, including physical distancing, face coverings and pre-booking where appropriate. More college students will be able to return to on-campus learning, and 12 to 17-year-olds will be able to resume outdoor contact sports from this date. Restrictions on non-essential travel across local authority boundaries will remain in place. People must stay within their council area for non-essential shopping and should only travel to another area for essential shopping if there is no practical alternative. People should also continue to work from home where they can to prevent unnecessary contact that could risk transmission of the virus. The latest easing of restrictions comes as data shows continuing suppression of the coronavirus, COVID-19 virus, and progress on vaccination. Virtually all over 65-year-olds have now received the first dose of the vaccine, and the average daily case rate is now 539 new cases per day, a decline of more than 75% since early January. And now to election news, and Kate Forbes puts young Scots at the front and centre of her campaign. Kate Forbes has described the upcoming election as a historic opportunity for Scotland's young people to shape the future of the country, and pledged that the interests of young Scots will be at the front and centre of the SNP's election campaign. Campaigning in Dingwall today, Kate, the Finance Secretary, will outline a series of SNP policies to go even further to empower young people in Scotland, including ensuring that everyone aged 16 to 24 gets an opportunity for work, education or training through the Young Persons Guarantee, raising the age at which Scots become eligible for council tax from 18 to 22, guaranteeing free university tuition, expanding concessionary travel to everyone under the age of 22. Ms Forbes urged young voters to unite behind the SNP and to put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands and not Boris Johnson's. Commenting, Kate Forbes said, "Young people in Scotland have benefited hugely from progressive SNP policies, but it's vitally important that we keep this progress going, especially considering the severe impact the pandemic has had on the opportunities afforded to young people." And now more election news, and only 9 years left to avert a climate breakdown, say the Greens. The Scottish Greens say other parties are sleepwalking Scotland to climate breakdown. 2020 was one of the warmest years on record, and without further urgent action, global warming is on track to rise by more than double the target agreed in the Paris Agreement. While the UK and Scotland have lowered emissions, largely down to the decline in coal, the hardest choices are still to come. Yet all other parties support the continued exploration for new oil and gas reserves, even though burning all known reserves would far exceed our commitments under the Paris Agreement. Commenting, the Scottish Greens co-leader, Patrick Harvey, said that with only 9 years to go until the climate crisis becomes irreversible, this has to be the climate election. By the next election, it will be too late to take any meaningful and radical action required to cut Scotland's emissions, so we can play a leading role in global efforts to prevent a catastrophic level of global warming. Scotland can't afford to continue this complacency. And with just 6 months before the COP climate conference in Glasgow, it's time to get real. Only the Scottish Greens have the solutions to the climate crisis and have announced green recovery investment plans that would slash emissions and create over 100,000 jobs. And now in other election news, the Labour Party proposes a national recovery plan for the Scottish National Health Service. The Labour Party has proposed a national recovery plan for the Scottish NHS, which Anna Sarwar will announce at tonight's Leaders' Debate. The proposals include plans to prioritise cancer diagnosis and treatment, to invest in mental health services, to create a national care service, and a real pay rise for NHS staff and £15 per hour for social care staff. And now to the subject of Tory cronyism. The SNP has ramped up pressure on Boris Johnson to come clean over the rampant cronyism which is dominating his Tory government, after new research revealed that nearly £1 billion in contracts have been awarded to firms linked to Tory party donors. Details published by Byline Times and The Citizens found that since the start of the pandemic, 57 contracts worth around £944 million were afforded to just 15 firms, with directors or people with controlling interests over these companies who've donated £12 million to the Conservative Party. The investigation revealed that among the firms to benefit from the lucrative contacts were Softcat, which won around £16.2 million in COVID-related contracts. The director of the firm has donated £125,000 to the Conservatives since 2019. And a current shareholder, Lord Nash, a Tory peer and Cabinet Office non-executive director, has, along with his wife, donated nearly £667,000 to the Tories in recent years. Computer Centre, which has been awarded around £200 million in contracts. The firm was co-founded by Sir Philip Hume, whose family have donated over £100,000 to the Tory party. Clipper Logistics, which won a £1.3 million contract to distribute PPE. Its founder and executive chairman has historically donated more than £500,000 to the Conservative Party. This contract is yet to be officially published by the government. And just last month, Pertemps Recruitment secured a £2.5 million contract to employ staff at testing sites. The lifetime president, Tim Watts, has donated thousands of pounds to Tory candidates and the party. And now a call to scrap the benefit cap as 10,000 more households are hit. The SNP has renewed calls for the Tory government to scrap the benefit cap to avoid more families and children being pushed into poverty, as new figures show that 10,000 more households have been hit by the cruel policy. The UK government's own new figures show that the number of households hit by the benefit cap increased from 170,000 in August 2020 to 180,000 in November 2020, the latest available date for which figures are available. 61%, that's 110,000 of the households, had their benefits capped, were single-parent families, and just over half of them, 51% of all capped households with children, contained a child under the age of 5, 76,000 households. And 150,000 capped households, that's 84%, contained children. At the end of the year, the figures revealed that the number of Scottish households affected by the cap nearly doubled during the pandemic, from around 3,300 in January to around 4,600 in August. The figures come just after the SNP announced plans to double the Scottish Child Payment, a social security payment that is not capped and has been described as game-changing by charities. And now to the police handling of the Sarah Everard vigil. A report on the Metropolitan Police's handling of the vigil for Sarah Everard has concluded that offers acted appropriately. The report from the official policing inspectorate was ordered after the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, after widespread outrage at the scenes of officers grappling with mourners at the vigil on Clapham Common, South London on Saturday the 13th of March. Published today, the report from Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services concluded the Metropolitan Police acted appropriately at the vigil held in memory of Sarah Everard on Clapham Common. A new inspection is found. The vigil happened with COVID restrictions in place. The report clears police of being heavy-handed and says inspectors found that the Metropolitan Police was justified in adopting the view that the risks of transmitting COVID-19 at the vigil were too great to ignore when planning for and policing the event. The report appears to be a significant, if not total, vindication of police actions at the vigil. It does say that there was insufficient communication between police commanders about changing events on the ground. And now to the United Kingdom's aid to Syria. The UK has slashed aid to Syria despite direct appeals from the UN. The United Kingdom has slashed its funding of the Syrian refugee programme by a third at a major United Nations donor conference, despite direct appeals from the United Nations that the plight of refugees has grown worse than ever since Syria's 10-year civil war. The UK offer of at least two. I beg your pardon. I'll read that again. The UK offer of at least £205 million was made by the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab and compares with a donation of £300 million at the same conference last year. The UK eventually provided £400 million last year, so if there is no additional UK funding later in the year, the British aid cut will be almost 50%. It's the latest in a long line of cuts being made by the UK to its aid programme due to its decision to reduce the size of British aid budget relative to the size of the country's economy. Raab stressed that the UK had provided £3.5 billion to help Syrian refugees inside Syria and in neighbouring countries since 2012. But he also accepted Syria's neighbours were under exceptional pressure due to COVID. Germany, the United States and the European Union, traditionally the largest donors to Syria's refugee programme, did not cut their donations, and Berlin pledged not only £480 million for this year, but the same sum again next year. The US pledge includes future loans. Now to the teen who took viral video of Floyd. I beg your pardon, let me read that again. And now to the teen who took viral Floyd video has cried at the Chauvin trial. The Minneapolis teenager whose cell phone video of Derek Chauvin's deadly arrest of George Floyd sparked worldwide protest, began weeping as she was shown an image from the video at the former policeman's murder trial today. Prosecutors have begun their case by calling several people who witnessed the arrest on May the 25th, 2020. A Minneapolis 911 dispatcher, a young woman who worked at a gas station across the street, and a mixed martial arts fighter who was passing by. During the witness testimony, prosecutors have played videos of the arrest to the jury, taken from multiple angles, including the teenager's video that shows Chauvin, who is white, pressing a knee into the neck of a dying Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, for about 9 minutes. The footage, which prosecutors say shows excessive force, horrified people around the world and led to one of the largest protest movements seen in the United States in decades. Many have held up Floyd's death as an example of the brutality which they say is routinely doled out by US law enforcement in encounters with people of colour. Darnella Fraser, 18, was walking her young cousin to buy some snacks at Cup Foods, where the worker had moments before accused Floyd of using a fake $20 bill, when she saw police arresting Floyd outside and pulled out her cell phone. Frazier lost her composure and her voice quavered when prosecutors brought up a still from her video, showing the moment when Chauvin, his knee on Floyd's neck, appears to look directly into Frazier's camera lens. "Yes," she said, crying and catching her breath when asked if she recognised him. This was the officer that was kneeling on George Floyd's neck. Lawyers for Chauvin, 45, say that he followed his police training and is not guilty of the charges of second-degree murder, third-degree murder or second-degree manslaughter. Now to news of COVID-19 vaccinations. The Novavax COVID-19 vaccine could be approved by the UK in April. The United Kingdom could approve Novavax's COVID-19 vaccination next month, the chief investigator for the vaccines trial has said. The regulator will do a very detailed and thorough review and will decide in good time, said Professor Paul Heath, the chief investigator for the Novavax jab trial in the UK. I would hope that it will be in the spring and possibly the end of April. And now that brings us to the end of tonight's news. And I'd just like to remind you, of course, at this time that Broadcasting Scotland is running a major crowdfunder at the moment. So if you'd like to become a regular supporter of Broadcasting Scotland for £5 a month, or if you'd like to make an individual donation, or even to volunteer to work in the studio, you can do all of those things by following the links at the bottom of your screen now. But that's about it from me here in the Scotland at 7 studio. I'll be back again tomorrow night with another edition. But for now, from our studio here in Cowcaddens, a very good evening to you.
What distinguishes Broadcasting Scotland from a website or blog, apart from our brilliant programmes?
Hi there, I'm Gordon Ross.
Are the costs we face to enable us to produce those programmes. These costs are significant and ongoing. However, our facilities are able to do so much more if only we had the staff. In the last year, some of our supporters have cancelled their subscriptions. In one way, we would prefer it if it was because they didn't like us, rather than it being because of the financial pressures which we are all under because of COVID. The really positive outcome of our fundraiser is that at a time of economic challenge in Scotland, we will use your donations to create jobs and in a small way contribute to improving the Scottish economy. If you want us to be Scotland's independent broadcaster, able to provide an alternative mainstream television platform, then please support us.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
Just imagine what we could do if we had even 1% of the BBC Scotland channel's budget. Imagine. And then please consider turning your imagination into reality. Please support us if you can afford it.